Good afternoon, People's Rights, Oregon and beyond. My name is BJ Soper. I am the State Assistant here in Oregon for People's Rights, and I want to bring an issue that is brewing to your attention in the Klamath Falls, Oregon area. For decades now, water has been a massive point of contention between different groups and people, and that is coming to a head again today. I want to show you some documents between attorneys and government agencies. The attorneys for the Klamath Irrigation District, or as you'll see in the documents, KID, K-I-D. They make a very poignant claim that the water is there, it's to be used, and they're going to go ahead and do that. And the government, through the Bureau of Reclamation, and you'll see the BRO, rebutting that aspect. And as we see, we kind of have a bit of a standoff going on. So let me rephrase that. There's a bit of a standoff between the two agencies as to how to move forward. So I want to show you guys what exactly is going on right now. So bear with me. I'm going to flip the camera around, and you can see the computer screen here that Reitman Law is the attorney for the Klamath Irrigation District, and he's sending an email to Jared Botcher of the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. The attorney goes on to say that as a threshold matter, there is about 339,820 acre-feet of water currently being stored in the Upper Klamath Lake, the UKL. The Oregon Water Resources Department is tasked with deciding or determining how much water is stored in the lake, and this number comes directly from that agency. This email continues to go on to say that Reclamation has no legal right to store water in the Upper Klamath Lake except to benefit the separate irrigation rights for the Klamath Reclamation Project. So understanding what that means is the people that own these ranches and the farms are a part of this reclamation project. In 1901, when the federal government built this dam across Klamath Lake was a natural lake. It was a basin that held water, but they built this dam across the river, and it raised the level of the lake 7 feet. That top 7 feet, when water is being stored, belongs solely to the farms and ranches that own the water rights in the area. So that's what this is saying. Saying that that water is only to be used for the benefit of the irrigation rights, and there is no other lawful purpose. We talked about that. Water. Let's talk a little bit about water. Water rights. They are titled, they're recorded, and they're considered private property by law. It is no different than the title for your car or the deed to your house. It all goes hand in hand. Water is done the same way as well. We talked about the lake being a natural basin, and that when the dam was constructed in 1901, it was a wooden structure, and in the early 20s it was replaced with a concrete structure. But the same height has always maintained. There is the top 7 feet of the water is owned by the farmers and ranchers inside of the irrigation district. So the attorney goes on to quote, this are excerpts from the contract between the Klamath Irrigation District and the Bureau of Reclamation. The district shall take the water, and I emphasize the word shall take the water, for the lands within the limits of the district. They have a job to do. We are supposed to deliver the water to the people. It continues to go on to say that that water will be delivered in the quantities at times that are dictated. So that is very interesting information there, that they have a job and a duty to fulfill the contract, and in order to do that, they have to take the water and deliver the water. These provisions in the KID contract have basically saying, look, we don't have any discretion here. We don't get to make the decisions of when to take the water or when not to take the water. We have one job, that's to take the water and deliver it. We don't get to make up the rules as we go along. Under the contract, the federal government has said that under the contract, there is no protection for the irrigation district if they were to not send the water as their contract dictates. The federal government is saying, please don't take their water, you can't have the water, but our contract says that we have to take the water and deliver the water, but the federal government will not indemnify them. They won't protect them from lawsuits, which have already been threatened at this point. So it is what KID is saying here is that at a minimum, it's necessary for the government to protect the irrigation district from being responsible for the lawsuits or the lack of water to the farmers and ranchers that own it. So, quick recap. The irrigation district has no choice but to do its job according to the contract. The word shall is very narrow in meaning. It means they must do these things. The attorney points out that while being told not to use the water is all fine and dandy, the contract gives them no ability for the irrigation district to make those kinds of decisions. And in fact, they would be legally liable to people if they don't deliver the water. So, what KID has come up and says, it says to meet the beneficial use demand according with our contract, we have to start taking the water. We're going to do that around April 15th. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to charge the irrigation system. And we're going to do that by taking 100 cubic feet of water per second into the canal. And the canal is going to take 4 to 6 days to charge up. And then they're going to continue to use that water to start beginning to deliver that to the people that own it. What's interesting here about this is right now there's 925 cubic feet of water, or cubic feet per second of water coming into the lake from snow runoff, from the rivers, from all the drainages that come into this. 925 cubic feet per second of water are coming into this lake. The irrigation district simply needs 100 cubic feet per second of water to do what they need to do. With that said, the government right now is dumping 1,300 and roughly a little over 1,300 cubic feet of water per second through the dam right now. So what KID is saying here is that we are only going to use 100 cubic feet per second. We're not going to affect the change of the lake. Okay, that's not up to us at this point. There's more water coming in than will be going out if it's between the water coming in and us. But you, federal government, if you continue to dump more water out of it, you're the ones that are going to be responsible for the lake level changing. Now, the attorney goes on to say that our contract says, government, that if we have a dispute between you and us, that the Oregon Water Resources Department is going to listen to that dispute and try to figure out how to solve it. Not only is that in our contract, but it is mandatory as a statute in Oregon. So, they continue to go on to say that, hey, through June 1st, we're only going to use that live flow of water that's coming into the lake. The water that is flowing in from the river, from the snowmelt, from all the other drainages that come into the lake. We're only using 100 cubic feet and there's well over 900 coming in, so we're not going to be the ones to cause a problem here. Now, unless you, the government, decides to change what it's doing by sending 1,300 plus cubic feet a second through the dam, you are the ones that are going to cause the lake level to change. It's not us. We're just simply doing what we're supposed to do, taking the water, delivering it to the people that own it. Now, using stored water, the attorney goes on to say, this comes specifically, if you look at this last thing, Reclamation's own analysis recently concluded that using water stored that is otherwise subject to the beneficial use of the Klamath project or otherwise to produce in-stream flows is not permitted. They can't use that water to make sure that the river flows, because that water doesn't belong to the river. That water belongs to the farmers and ranchers. Therefore, Reclamation cannot release previously stored water in priority to make sure that the river is flowing the way that it has. By law, they've said that themselves. They know that they're breaking the law by sending this water through the dam downstream. Now, with that said, some more key information here just to recap. The district can begin doing its job using water that's coming into the lake currently and will not affect the level of the lake at all. And then the government has concluded that it has no legal authority to dump water through the dam. Yet it's dumping over, this says 1,200, we are updating this today to over 1,300 cubic feet per second that goes through the dam. And out of the lake at this moment. There's so much water going out of the lake that the Klamath Indian tribe last week filed suit in federal court to stop the water going downriver. There, the Indian tribe's lawsuit assesses that in 1993, the water levels were the lowest on record. Yet that year, the irrigation district still took the water that it needed to complete its requirements and delivered to the farmers and the ranchers, and the fish in question had the best years of success, and it was the best salmon run in decades that the lower Klamath River had seen. All this was done with the least amount of water on record. Okay, we are nowhere near that level right now. Interesting quote from the email by the attorney. The farmers who Kidd owes the water delivery obligations, they have done nothing, absolutely nothing, to cause this current situation. The responsibility for the current situation rests squarely at the government's feet. Now, if the only way to resolve the issues, to resolve the crisis that the government has created, is to reduce project demand, there's a way to do that here. The contract says how it's done, and the Endangered Species Act in Clause 5 also says how it's done. To do that, the government must pay the ranchers and the farmers for their water, right? They must exchange their water rights in exchange for compensation. The Irrigation District has already talked about it. They're ready, willing, and able to help facilitate such an effort. We're going to talk about this more in just a second. So government's responsibility, they're the responsible party for the current crisis. They've improperly managed the water flows and the water, and as a matter of fact, they are the sole cause for the suckerfish in question's decline. The farmers are not responsible for the crisis, yet the government expects them to be the only party to bear the burden. And if the farmers are willing to be a part of the solution here, if there really is a problem, as long as they receive compensation, all that they're asking for is the ability to break even. Now, when we talk about what that cost is to break even, fair value for the water is $4,000 per acre that it's used on. The irrigation district customers are entitled to water for 220,000 acres. Let me say that again, 220,000 acres. The math says that the government would owe the farmers and ranchers in this district alone $880 million to pay them off for taking their water. That is the amount that's needed to simply break even. The government has told the irrigation district that it's working closely to secure drought relief funding, and I'm using air quotes just like the screen does. And if they choose to take the water, the people will not be eligible for the funding. That relief fund is currently sitting at $11 million. That is an absolute slap in the face of these farmers and ranchers. For perspective, that's $50 an acre versus the $4,000 needed to simply break even. If Reclamation is not interested in working lawfully to reduce project water demand in the dispute, they need to go to the Oregon Waters Resource Department for resolution. Kidd filed a suit to be able to have this happen, and the federal government came back and said, hey, listen, we're not interested in your lawsuit in state court. We don't care what the state of Oregon has to say. We're the federal government. If you want to go to court, we're going to federal court. And April 28th, they have moved this court hearing from the state to the federal courthouse in Eugene. And we'll have more details on that as that develops. Kids doing everything that they can to make sure that they are protected from lawsuit, that their clients are protected from being forced into economic bankruptcy, and they are already feeling threats from litigation from the people that need that water. So we're going to move forward here. On to the government's response. The government, we sent you a letter March 12th letting you know that the water was just not available this year from the upper Klamath Lake and the Klamath Rivers for irrigation purposes. And the reasons were explained below. Accordingly, you were told that, that there's not going to be any water available for you at least until May 1st. That's been recently updated to more like June 1st. And if any of you are farmers, ranchers, or even just gardeners, you know that planting your garden on June 1st and needing water to water those plants to get them to grow, you're not going to have much of a crop. We just know that this is Central Oregon. Our growing season is super short, and it's just not going to happen. So basically, the government is saying, we'll give you water maybe June 1st, maybe not. We're not sure. But up until then, you can't have any of it because of the need to meet the requirements of the Endangered Species Act. But wait a second. Are we talking about an endangered fish, or are we talking about a drought? Last week, Merkley, Wyden, and Senator Representative Cliff Bentz came out with a press release saying that, hey, oh my goodness, we see that there's just not enough water for everybody to go around. That we're gonna have to figure out how to work together on all this. And hey guys, we're doing everything that we can to secure some more money. Don't worry, help is on its way. We have found $28 million to help you guys now. $28 million instead of the $880 million necessary to break even. Again, it's a slap in the face. And what this is forced economic suicide. The government continues to say that any action by Kidd to divert the water, contrary to our letter saying that you can't have it, is against the law. You have to follow the contract it must be carried out to the satisfaction of the secretary, which basically is saying is that, we have an agreement, but the secretary, basically, if he's not happy, that changes the agreement, and you're going to have to do what's necessary to keep the secretary happy. And if you do these things, if you take the water, you're not going to be eligible for any of our relief funding. And then if you do these things, we are also going to press charges against you. And we'll talk about those in a second. What's very interesting, at the very bottom, it says, listen, Kidd, a letter or order from the Oregon Waters Resources Department may not justify operation under the federal laws that govern and presently limit the operation of your canal. So what they're saying there is, I know the contract says that we're supposed to go to the Oregon Water Resources Department for resolution of a dispute, but, we really don't care what they have to say, and even if they do rule in your favor, it's not going to be enough to change what the federal government tells you to do. So, key information. The contract between the district and the government has a clause saying that there is a way to solve the discrepancies here. Yet the federal government says we're not doing that. So they go on to say, furthermore, if you do these things and do the job that your contract tells you to do, we, the federal government, will do everything that we can to press charges against you, criminally, civilly, and in any manner that we can find necessary to do that. On top of that, if you go ahead and do your job the way that the contract says to do your job, we have the right to take over the dam and the canals associated with the irrigation district back under our control. So what does that say? The government has now threatened the district with civil, legal, and criminal action if they do what they are simply obligated to do. And they have also threatened denial of funding if they do their job also. On top of that, they've threatened to take over control of the headgates and the canal. And keep in mind, this canal crosses thousands of acres of private property. So we're going to wrap this up here, and then we're going to get into what you can do to help out. The people of this district have the undisputed ownership of the water. The history, the law, and the courts are fully on their side at this point. They have a contractual duty to deliver the water to their customers each and every year. Currently, there is no court order or court injunction preventing them from delivering the water. There's nothing but threats. There's nothing stopping them from doing their job but the threat of a government. Now, the farmers are willing to forego their property for proper compensation. All they want to do is break even. The Department of Justice has told the district members that they will arrest and prosecute anyone that opens the dam to the canal. Yet, again, there is nothing given from a court to stop them from doing their job. Currently, the government sends more water out of the lake through the dam than comes in. And the Klamath tribe has filed suit in federal court to stop the federal government from letting the water go through the dam downriver. The district has everything on their side except a unified community. It's come to light that there's two groups, the Water Users Association and the next water district downstream, the Tule Lake District. They are pushing people to not take their water and to keep it off. Why? We also found out that there are insurance claims being filed, which are funded solely by the federal government to pay damages for the lack of water and crops to their lands. It's noted that the land south of the Oregon-California border, there are multiple large wells that run anywhere between 6,000 and 11 gallons per minute. They're using those wells to fill the irrigation canals in California right now. So what can we see? We can see that big money and politics and possibly greed are at play here. There is absolutely no need to deplete a water table. There is absolutely no need to cost the taxpayers untold amounts of money and destroy small acre farms that will not receive a bailout while there's plenty of water available through the regular processes. The water's there. They own it already. They can use it. It's there. There's no reason to cost us upwards of $1 billion of taxpayer money to bail these farms out when it is absolutely not necessary. So here we go. What can you do to help? Man, first and foremost, you just talk to people. Tell people about this issue. Hey, you guys know what's going on down in Klamath Falls? Did you hear about this water deal going on? That the government's trying to take their water, basically making these people go bankrupt? The public needs to know what's going on here. Second, we need to email Cliff Benz, Ron Wyden, and Jeff Merkley and let them know that, one, the money that the federal government is offering is an absolute slap in the face and it is not enough. Then second, if in fact we were to give them tax dollars, it's ridiculous to do so, especially when plenty of water is available. We shouldn't be on the hook for the inability of the federal government to do its job properly. Continued on, contact the Oregon Water Resources Department and let them know that you support the proper use of the water that is being stored in the upper Klamath Lake. Then contact the Board of Directors for KID, the Klamath Irrigation District, and let them know that you support them. Do your job and deliver the water as you are obligated to do. Give the farmers and the ranchers their private property that they've bought and paid for. Then contact the Water Users Association and the Tule Lake Irrigation District Board and ask them, why are you pushing to stop the water? Contact the Bureau of Reclamation Office and let them know that threats, force, and coercion of this district simply doing its job is unacceptable. That these people are not the criminals here. The Bureau and the federal government are acting as criminals. Tell them to do their job properly and to stop sending the water downstream. And let them know we will stand with our farmers and ranchers to defend their lands and their private property rights. So, why is this issue so important? Well, here in Central Oregon, where I live, we have a very similar situation with our water controls. The Bureau of Reclamation manages the water at the Wickiup Reservoir. And if we sit back and allow the federal government to manipulate property rights in Klamath Falls, we are surely to be next. Our farms and our ranches are already feeling the effects of an endangered frog for which the water and the property has already been stolen. If it's happening there, it will surely happen here also. So, what I'm going to ask each and every one of you to do is help out, make these contacts, reach out to these senators, these elected officials, these bureaucrats, and let them know that we are watching and that we're not going to sit by and let our farms and our ranches be abused. We're not going to let private property rights go to the wayside. It is too important for the future of this country. So contact me at peoplesrightsoregon@gmail.com and I will send you a contact list full of information of each of the people that I asked you to contact previously. It's so important. We have to protect our friends and our neighbors, whether it's next door or whether it's 150 miles to the south of us in Klamath Falls. Property rights are property rights are property rights. If they can take theirs, they'll come after ours as well too. And then I want to lastly reiterate just how important protection of our resources is. Everything that we own, everything that we wear, the homes that we live in, even the electronics that we use, all the materials needed to build those items, the lumber for our houses, the minerals to make our iron in our cars, the rubber in our shoes, the leather in our shoes, the cotton in our pants, all of those come from the earth. And if we don't protect those resources, if we don't protect the people that that take those resources and make the products that we use to live our life, our everyday life, we're going to lose it all, right? We need the trees to build our houses. We need the water to irrigate the farms, to grow the cotton, to grow the grass that feeds the beef, to feeds the sheep, so on and so forth. It's all connected, and we have to protect it. Whether it's a farmer, whether it's a miner, whether it's a fisherman, whatever the case may be, we have to protect those people, because what they do provides substance for our lives. So God bless you guys for listening to this. We're running about 25 minutes. I know it's a little bit long, but the information is very critical. Take the time to help us out. Email me. I will get you that list of contacts, and together we can push back against this and hopefully stop what's happening. Hopefully we stop the economic destruction of Klamath Falls, because ultimately when 1,200 farms go under or go bankrupt, that is clearly going to affect Klamath Falls, the city of Klamath Falls. And if when that happens, we're also going to affect our food chain and our food supply, right? This is a very large community. They do a lot of good to feed this country, and we have to protect them. So that's what it's about. That's what People's Rights is about. Unite to defend. That's what I'm asking of you right now. Send me that email, peoplesrightsoregon@gmail.com, and I'll get that information to you as quickly as I can. God bless, and thank you for listening.